and welcome to the annual Fall Town Meeting virtual presentation of the Town Meeting Warrant. My name is James Smith. I am your Town Manager. I am joined with Jen Hager.
Hi, I'm Jen Hager, the town's Community Development Director.
This year's annual Fall Town Meeting will take place on Monday, October 16th at 7 p.m. in the Middle School, High School Auditorium. The doors open promptly at 6:30, and town moderator likes to get going promptly at 7, so get there early and get a seat and get ready to participate. There are 19 articles at this town meeting. The first half pretty much are financial articles, and the second half is more or less planning type articles, so I'll do the first half, and then Jen Hager will take over from there and review the planning and zoning articles. So let's get started. Article 1 is to transfer into the other post-employment benefits account, in this case $350,000 per the Select Board's policy. The Select Board developed this policy, they recently re-voted it, and 10% of free cash, which in this case is $3,500,000, 10% is $350,000, will go into the other post-employment benefits account, or OPEB. OPEB is there to fund pretty much health care insurance for retirees. So, Article 2 is to transfer $150,000 into the Special Education Tuition Stabilization Fund. This is excess of Medicaid funds that we received from budget, and that's per the Select Board's policy. This will bring the Special Ed Tuition Stabilization account up to roughly $630,000, $640,000 when this transfer takes place. Article 3 is to transfer $100,000 into the Healthcare Stabilization Fund account. We generally budget conservatively at the beginning of the year because we really don't know how many employees will sign up for health care. You know, the budget's done in, April, May timeframe, and new teachers join the school department in late August, give or take. So there is a timing issue, and you budget conservatively. This year, in addition, we charged a couple of accounts, enterprise accounts over at the school department. The school lunch program, which has been subsidized by the federal government. They've essentially offered free lunch, which gives the town the opportunity to take some health care monies, pay for the health care of these employees out of that particular account. The account is still healthy, it's over $400,000, but that's one way that we can benefit the town budget by the feds supporting the school lunch program. We also had additional revenue from the aftercare program. That's another school program, and we are charging health insurance for those employees that work in that program. So that's why we have that additional $100,000. When that's transferred, that will bring the account up to $500,000. That account is generally for a year when we have an unanticipated increase above 8% in our healthcare numbers, and we use that to kind of offset that spike in costs. So that's that article. Article 4 is to fund the town's share of an agricultural preservation restriction on 226 Putnam Hill Road, land owned by the Whittier family. The cost of this is $69,500, and with this we will be part of protecting 75 acres on Putnam Hill Road. This site is almost directly across the street from Blackstone National Golf Course. You've seen it in the summertime growing corn, and the Whittier Farms agreed to have this agricultural preservation restriction, which prevents any further development of this property, so it protects it in perpetuity in its current condition as open space. So I think it's a win and a positive, and the town contributes 5% of any APR. We did it with King Farm, and we're going to follow up with the Whittiers as well. So Article 5 is to pay prior year invoices. There are a couple prior year invoices that I don't have the numbers right now, but they're small numbers. And it's really timing issues of when the bill got delivered to us. You know, the year ends on June 30th, and bills that come in August, as soon as the accountant closes the books, they're late in a prior year bill, and that's why we'll need town meeting authorization to approve them. Article 6 is to fund the 5-year reval for the town. This reval is done through the Department of Revenue. They require revaluations, essentially re-looking at your property in a comprehensive manner. In the past, they did it every 3 years, but they've changed that to 5 years, which, you know, is not a problem for us, but we do need to appropriate monies to get this done. The plan is to do the reval in FY25, and I had hoped to put this off until the 2025 capital budget, but the Board of Assessors would like to get going on measuring and listing of these properties in preparation of the reval. So the request is for $45,000 to pay for this effort. Let me just say that all of these appropriations, the APR with Whittier Farms and the $45,000 for the reval are all coming out of new growth. So it's not an additional appropriation on the budget. It's excess new growth above what was budgeted. So we budgeted $200,000, and new growth has come in around, it's looking like it's going to be $425,000. So these appropriations will come out of that, those accounts. So it's essentially raise and appropriate, but it's new growth above what was budgeted. Article 7 is a home rule petition originally filed in 2018 by Select Board member Lemanik, I think, came up with this idea to grant property tax abatements for active duty personnel who are serving overseas. What happened in 2018, there was the bill, Selectman Lemanik went up and testified for this bill, but eventually it didn't make it through the entire process. So, and then COVID hit and so forth. So we are reintroducing this bill effective for FY25. And it same bill essentially, it's just, you know, going through the process to make this. And this will allow the Board of Assessors to abate property taxes for, you know, active members of the military who are serving overseas. For, you know, if it's half a year, they will abate half of the year in taxes and so forth. So we're still working on some of those details, but this bill will be hopefully introduced to the legislature based upon town meeting vote. Article 8 is to amend the general bylaws to prohibit trucks from using engine brakes on town roads. Trucks use these engine compression brakes every once in a while when they're coming up to a stop sign, or whether they're going downhill and a stop sign's ahead and you hear the of trucks to slow down. And rather than using their actual brakes, it helps preserve those brakes. But it does create a terrible noise, and there are some residents that have been affected by this and have asked us to look into this. And we have looked at a number of different bylaws, and ultimately are proposing one at this fall town meeting. This is just on town roads. It's not on state roads. We don't have control of the state, that's Mass DOT that has that. But these are, Central Turnpike, Boston Road, and other town roads that have significant truck traffic on them. Let me jump ahead. Jen can cover 9 and 10. There are more planning type articles, although the select board are sponsoring them. Let me jump to Article 11. This article is sponsored by the Board of Assessors. It will provide annual adjustments equal to the consumer price index for seniors 70 years and older to get a tax abatement. And this is based on their amount of money they bring in on an annual basis, essentially their gross receipts. So it's Social Security, maybe a small pension or an annuity of some aspect, but the limits are very small. For a single individual, it's $24,000. Anybody making over $24,000 does not get access to this abatement. And for married couples, a married couple making over $29,000 does not get any abatement on their property taxes. Again, these abatements are for seniors 70 years and older. So this will essentially adjust that annually due to the consumer price index. So it will go up a little bit on their gross receipts. This is not property values. It is just essentially the money they're bringing in on an annual basis. And this will help some seniors a little bit with property tax increases. So that's me. Jen, you want to go back to 9 and 10 and cover those?
Sure. Articles 9 and 10 I'm going to take together. They are related to changes to the Boston Road layout that many of us are seeing on the ground as we speak. If you've driven past Galaxy Pass, where the Market 32 is, you'll notice just past Galaxy Pass on your left-hand side, there are a number of changes happening to Boston Road. Those changes are related to the Unified Parkway project and the approval of the subdivision plan for that new roadway that caused changes to the Boston Road layout to be able to accept any potential traffic generated on the Unified Parkway to enter Boston Road and to travel back and forth on that section of Boston Road without creating traffic issues. So, directly in front of Unified Parkway, Boston Road is being widened to the north side. And while we were laying out these changes, or I should say while the developer was laying out these changes, we found that back to the intersection of Dudley Road, there was an old road layout from literally the 1700s. And in some plans it's referred to as Wilkinsonville Road. But it's an odd-shaped triangle that goes quite a distance back into what we thought were the properties of two abutters, Robinson and Doran, who are the first two properties from Dudley Road heading down Boston Road to the east. So what we would like to do is the section of Boston Road that is currently being widened in front of Unified Parkway, we will be accepting land from Unified Global Packaging, UGPG, about 21,000 square feet or so, and adding that into the layout of Boston Road, which we control as a town. And then as we go west towards the intersection of Dudley Road, we're going to clean up that old layout issue. We will be keeping about 5,000 square feet of that old layout, and basically in these two articles voting to confirm our rights in that old layout. And then in these articles we'd like to give the Board of Selectmen permission to get rid of about 12 to 13,000 square feet of land we do not need and we do not want to retain in that old layout. A lot of this land is frankly land that these two residents have thought they owned and have been using actively in some cases for as long as I've been here anyways. So this is really these two articles widening the roadway layout to include the changes we need in front of Unified Parkway, getting rid of old layouts with land we don't need. And in response to some questions asked at prior meetings, we will be keeping enough of that old layout forward thinking. So So we are thinking about potential changes we may need, you know, in not just the near future, but in the next, you know, 50 years, and making sure we retain a good swath of that roadway in case we need any additional widenings or changes. So that's what's happening in Article 9 and 10. Then we hop to Article 12. Articles 12, 13, and 14 all have to do with earth disturbance and removal. So last year, we revised our earth removal bylaw. And when we did that, we wanted to include earth disturbance, not just removal. There was development going on at the time that made it very clear that even if you're not taking earth off a site, just disturbing over a certain amount of earth can really cause some unanticipated issues, not just on the site, but with surrounding properties in terms of, you know, any kind of blasting impacts, dust, runoff, noise. So we were compelled to make some immediate changes to our earth removal bylaw to make sure we took into account those kind of instances. When we did that, we're human, so there were some typographical errors and some section references that need to be adjusted. So Article 12 really just addresses those typographical errors and format kind of, and section number errors. So all Article 12 is really just kind of a cleanup article on the bylaw. Article 13 was recommended by Town Council when he was reviewing the changes for Article 12. He noticed that the definitions related to earth removal and disturbance in the general bylaw and in the zoning bylaw don't match. So he has recommended, and Article 13 proposes, to change the definitions regarding earth removal and disturbance in the zoning bylaw to match the more recently adopted ones that are in the general bylaw. So that's all Article 13 does. It just makes those bylaws match. We can avoid confusion, any kind of misinterpretation. Article 14 is the last of the earth removal bylaw changes, and basically it just changes the name of the use in the use table in the zoning bylaw to match the name of the section of the general bylaw that regulates the use. So it used to say earth removal, it will now say earth disturbance and removal and disturbance, and you'll have a little wayfinding wording there that says per the general bylaw, so you know where to go to see where that's regulated and see those regulations. So you don't flip around in the zoning bylaw looking for earth removal and it's not there. So that's 14. All right, Articles 15 and 16 deal with low impact development, otherwise known as LID. Article 16 does a few extra things that I'll explain, but the reason for these two bylaws, where they came from, is we received some district local technical assistance from Central Mass Regional Planning. It's funding we apply for specialized projects. And with that funding, Central Mass Regional Planning reviewed our zoning bylaw, our stormwater bylaw, and our subdivision rules and regs to look for provisions that were low impact development friendly and or to suggest places where these could be added. Why do we want low impact development measures? Low impact development measures mimic or use natural processes. They generally deal with stormwater management. The reason they're important is when rain falls and it goes to a certain location in nature, when you start to develop a site, if you redirect that water to someplace it wasn't before, you can cause flooding issues in wherever you're directing it to, and you can cause drought and deficiency issues in wherever it was. And in the process, you can actually degrade water quality, you can affect habitat and other resources. So low impact development measures largely strive to use and or mimic nature to prevent unintended ecological impacts, basically. They take water out of pipes and make it visible in swales and the like. So if something's going wrong you see it. You don't have to guess or learn about it when it's too late, when there's an underground issue that you didn't see coming. Another thing about low impact development is when I say it mimics nature, we try to keep species of plants, for instance, on new sites for landscaping, natural species, those that are native to this area. Because again, if you've dealt with Japanese knotweed, you know that when you introduce a species of plant and or animal in some case, but we just do plants, into an area, it can cause issues again with rampant invasives, and can affect actually habitat that are used to having the availability of natural native plant species. So that's another thing that you see in low impact development. So the first and most impactful place the planning board is choosing to introduce low impact development practices is within site plan review. It is the regulation that is used most often in the town of Sutton. It largely centers around commercial and industrial sites or multifamily sites, and it is used every single time development comes in. So this is where we have chose to introduce our first set of minimum low impact development standards. Because it's within site plan review, if there is a unusual situation, a teeny tiny site or something like that, where these measures cannot be applied strictly or need some adjustment, there is a waiver provision within site plan review that will allow the board to tweak that. We also included some bonus provisions in here because we want to encourage the use of low impact development. So you'll see within these regulations that some of these measures, depending on what they are, can be placed in building setbacks that usually can't be impacted. You can count the areas of certain provisions as double towards your requirements. Again, we're trying to make it more attractive, encourage the use of these because frankly, we're just better overall. So 15 is introducing them into site plan review. 16 is introducing a few adjustments into our interior parking lot standard. And while we're working inside that section of the bylaw, we are also correcting two issues that are long-standing inside our interior parking lot standards. The first item is being able to consider landscaping around the perimeter as a parking lot as landscaping that adds to the shading and the cooling of that parking lot. If you're within 20 feet of the outside of a parking lot with trees and vegetation, you're effectively helping to shade that parking lot. It wasn't clear that we were allowing that area to be counted towards your landscaping requirements, so we're just making that clear. And item 3 that we're fixing is there is a provision within the parking regulations that we waive all the time. And we waive it all the time because we live in New England and snow plowing is an annual issue. Right now, if you have over 100 feet of parking, so it's 10 parking spaces, you have to install an island with landscaping, again, to create shading within a large paved area. And then you go another 10 spaces, you have another island. Every time this comes up, understandably, the applicants say, look, can we just waive that island? It's a nightmare when it comes to snow plowing. Can we just address it some other way? So while we were in this section, we said, you know what, we're going to do what has successfully done at Market 32 and Prime Metals, and basically change that requirement to taking a parallel to parking space island and shifting it perpendicular to those islands. So now you'll have 2 parking spaces that face each other. Right between them, you'll have a long island that can have trees and plantings and shade, and then you have an open swath of pavement, so plows and other maintenance vehicles can come and go and maintain the lots more effectively. So we will still require islands at the end of parking aisles because frankly, you don't want people cutting across and causing an accident as people try to pull out of those end parking spaces. So again, this has been successful and was actually what was requested at several large development sites like Market 32 and Prime Metals. So low impact development measures being integrated into interior parking and 2 existing issues being fixed in Article 16. All right, Article 17. is about special event facilities. So, a resident of the town of Sutton approached the planning board. They own a large parcel on Putnam Hill Road. And they said, you know, it's not inexpensive to retain a large parcel, to maintain it in a decent condition, to pay the taxes on large acreage without putting it in chapter land protection. So they asked the board to consider whether it might be acceptable and if they might sponsor an article to allow certain parcels. They came in with a 20-acre parcel limit. We actually increased it to 40 acres after running a map and seeing how many 20-acre parcels there are in Sutton, which is a lot. If they could allow those size parcels to apply for a special permit for a special event facility. So the board, they had provided sample bylaws from Shelburne and other communities that allow this kind of use. And the board thought about it. They had me do some more research and work with, again, Central Mass Regional Planning, our go-to. And the board decided to sponsor the article. They thought this might aid in creating a revenue stream to property owners, which might provide them an alternative to selling off these large parcels for development. So that was kind of their primary reason for supporting this, sponsoring this to town meeting, and then of course letting town meeting voters ultimately decide whether it's appropriate or not. So what this bylaw is simply the minimum requirements that would be required on any parcel that's applying for a special permit. As you know, the special permit process then also allows the board to say yes or no. There may be a site where you just can't possibly mitigate the effect of a potential operation, in which case the board can say no, listing the reasons why. Beyond that, they can craft additional conditions to apply to different sites. Every site is going to be different. For instance, if you proposed a wedding barn in the dead center of the Star of the East farm off DeWitt Road, and a little bit of parking around it, and you only had, and in your permit you only asked for 10 events per year, that's very easy to mitigate and not have effect on the neighbors compared to, say, another parcel where you're just 40 acres and the place where you're gonna host weddings is a big old barn right on your building setback, 20 feet from your neighbors. That needs a whole different set of consideration and conditions and may not ultimately be appropriate to permit at all. So again, this just puts down minimum standards. The special permit process allows the board to put in additional ones and even drop the minimum standards that are in there. They can't go up. So this has, for instance, a cap of 125 people at events. They could go down based on the particulars of a property. They can't go over 125. So people can be assured what the maximums are in here will be the maximums unless town meeting comes back at some future date and changes the bylaw. So you'll see there's the same kind of licensing required here that is required for businesses who also do this kind of work. So you need liquor licenses, you need victualers licenses, and event licensing. And so this is what the board feels is the most responsible way to approach this particular request and allow town meeting to consider whether they think it is appropriate or not within the town of Sutton. All right. Article 18 is the second part of this. The districts of the board feels are appropriate for this use because of the availability of appropriate sized parcels or the consistency of uses within districts are the rural residential district, the office light industrial district, and the business highway district. So Article 18 is just the three districts where the board feels this could be allowed by special permit. So Article 17 is the actual regulation. Article 18 is adding the use to the bylaw in these three districts by special permit only. And last but not least is Article 19. Article 19 proposes the expansion of the Sutton Center Village Overlay District. Back in 2019, we concluded a one-year-long process of working with town residents and residents of Sutton Center. Over 100 residents were personally invited directly, anybody who was in the National Historic District here in Sutton Center, to participate in a process where we would consider whether it was appropriate to allow some limited additional active uses like small restaurants and gift shops and artisans and the like, in exchange for some architectural massing and placement protections that were intended to basically keep any new uses or any additions that go on in this overlay district consistent with the architecture that exists currently within the village. So, right now, while most of Sutton Center is a National Historic District, that comes with no regulations or restrictions. Any building within Sutton Center could be torn down and any building could be placed. You could have an Italianate mansion in the middle of Sutton Center, believe it or not. So it's all within the purview of the property owner, what they want to do with their property. They do enjoy kind of the, it's really just an accolade when you're in the National Historic District. It doesn't carry any regulation whatsoever. For Sutton it does, because say we were going to redo the town hall, we may be applying for a grant that has state or federal funding in it to help us redo it. If you apply for state or federal funding, then, and you're National Historic, you are reviewed by Mass Historic Commission. But for any private property owner, there is no regulation that goes along with National District designation. So, again, so this was seen as twofold. Again, not cheap to maintain an old structure and to maintain it in the unique architectural vernaculars we hear here in Sutton Center. So here's an opportunity for you to do that, to commit to doing that long-term, and in exchange, if needed, if you feel like it, if you get a special permit, again, from the planning board in most cases, you can go through the hearing process and see whether you would be permitted to establish these smaller uses. To be clear, Article 19 is not proposing any changes to that bylaw, to the regulations of the district. Those were established by voters in 2019. Nothing is being proposed to change. All we're proposing with this article is adding 9 parcels onto the district. So, the district currently only has 4 parcels in Sutton Center. It has Polly's Antiques, the Sutton Center store, the blacksmith shop, and the old high school parcel just to the north of the Sutton Center store. So we are proposing to expand the district to the west to number 334 Boston Road, which is owned by Keith Downer. So every property from the center store all the way through number 334. We will expand it to the south through the town hall parcel to number 10 Uxbridge Road. That is the Halls Mills house. And we will include 13 Singletary Ave to the district. That is just to the east of the district, and that is currently where honey is sold. There's a barn and a little multifamily structure on that parcel. So that is the proposed expansion of the district that is proposed, again, on those parcels with a special permit process. You could have additional uses. I want to stress that the individuals that brought this forward, their interest wasn't in creating new commercial uses. That's not what they want to do. What they want to do is, and in particular, Keith Downer, who brought forward the parcel, and Joyce Smith, whose mother's house is in here, and even Paul Schaefer, they want to be certain, should they sell their home, should they move on after they pass away, that their structures will be in the district, which will force them to maintain the same kind of architecture, massing, and placement on the lots. So that was their interest. So they didn't come to us saying, I want to do a pottery shop, or Keith Downer, unfortunately, in my opinion, didn't want to reopen the tavern, one of 4 that were in walking distance of the town hall back in the day. He didn't want to reopen his tavern. He just wants his building, his barn, his property to stay looking pretty much the way it does, should he not own it in the future. So that is the sum total of these articles. We hope to see you.
Yeah, definitely. Town meeting, again, is Monday, October 16th at 7 p.m. in the middle school, high school auditorium, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.